continue to shift, but the preference for the use of digital services induced and pressured by this global pandemic will stay. Second, many companies have set up remote working models almost overnight, with fundamental impact on business models and organizational structure. Thirdly, demand recovery will be unpredictable, uneven across geographies, sectors, product categories, and customer segments, and often slow to return to pre-crisis levels. And the COVID-driven digitalization, as we can see and observe, is uneven both across and within countries. The least developed countries and the economically backward areas of many developing countries, especially rural areas, do not have such an infrastructure, ecosystem, and network. Many obstacles continue to hamper greater participation in the e-commerce activities by small businesses and consumers. As a new pattern of a digitalized economic system is taking shape in rather advanced economies, the pre-existing so-called digital divide risks being widened, and a new digital divide may emerge. This requires significant adaptation of policy measures for entrepreneurs and programs on capacity building and MSME sector to prevent this happening. This is also what prompted the UN framework for the immediate social economic response to COVID-19, of which this series of webinars is part of. We will have the honor today to hear from Dr. Dashti how the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia responded to the challenge with the newly launched Center for Entrepreneurship. Also, our distinguished panel of policymakers and entrepreneurs will share with us their practices and how they have been using digital solutions and innovation to adapt to the crisis and how it will play a role in the recovery. UNCTAD is really grateful for their participation and as well as for this excellent partnership we have built with UNITAR more generally, but also in progressing with delivery of this series of important webinars. Thank you again for joining the second edition of the webinar series, and we look forward to productive and engaging discussions in this webinar and also in the ones that would follow. So with this, I hand it over to you, Alex, to continue with the program. Thank you for your attention. You're muted, Alex.
Thank you. I was just saying thank you to you, Tatiana. It's quite an honor to work with UNCTAD very closely. I do represent UNITAR, quite a privilege for me. I say hello from Geneva as well, on behalf of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. I will be hopefully following up on Tatiana's words. I will give you an overview of how the COVID resurgence, using some numbers perhaps, should take place. So let's begin with the presentation. Just to remember this very sad news, we have 38 million confirmed cases around the world and more than 1 million deaths. We soon be at the 40 million level that some of us would have not think possible when this all started. I do remember that the webinar series at UNITAR started in mid-March, and the number that we had at the time of confirmed cases stuck in my head, it was 165,000. And if you have told me in mid-March that we would be nearing 40 million confirmed cases of COVID, I would have been very skeptical. However, this is a reality that we live through now. The last 2 weeks in Switzerland and in Europe have been very drastic. And if you go to the next slide, Julia, if I may, you will see that unfortunately the incidence of the virus continues to be very aggressive in all regions of the world. We were very happy to see, for instance, that a few months back in Africa, the impact was a little less than in other regions. It is not so anymore, unfortunately. So it is a global pandemic indeed. We are in a second wave, and we have to learn how to build back better. Our Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has insisted for several months now that whatever we do it better. We provide better frameworks, better public policy, better infrastructure, better protection for the most vulnerable of people. Next, please. Here you see that COVID-19 and entrepreneurship, thank you, Tatiana, for such an excellent introduction. You put this in a holistic perspective, but just allow me to say that the coronavirus outbreak has caused a global health emergency indeed, but also a global economic slowdown. And if you think who has been affected the most, SMEs should be at the center of the analysis. Trade, investment, growth, and employment are all affected, and the crisis will have an impact on the achievement of the SDGs. We will talk a little more about this very soon, and our own Undersecretary General Rola Dashti is going to mention what her commission is doing for Western Asia and the Middle East. Every business that has been forced to close leads to multiple stories of unemployment, economic and social dislocation, as well as staggering uncertainty. It remains paramount that governments, in partnership with different stakeholders, dedicate their support to drive competitiveness of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, with a particular focus on those small businesses in developing countries. Next, please. Here you see, unfortunately, only for middle-income and developed countries, that our colleagues are ILO, and ILO is very close to the Palais des Nations, to where we are here in Geneva. Our colleagues are still working to provide, I believe, very soon, the same picture that we see here for the LDCs and SIDS, least developed countries and small island development states. But still, these numbers reveal something important. Amongst upper middle income countries, around 70%, actually more than 70% of workers continue to live in countries with strict lockdown measures in place, either nationwide or in specific geographic areas, while in low-income countries, the early strict measures have been relaxed considerably despite increasing numbers of COVID-19 cases. This, for all of you esteemed participants joining us from so many countries and regions, this should be important to understand in this dichotomy, this very sad dichotomy of people in perhaps nations that are low and middle income and LDCs particularly, having to make this decision between going to the street to work, exposing themselves to COVID, or staying at home to be healthy and safe, but not having an income. It's a very sad reality indeed. 17.3% of the working hours have been decreased as of these statistics in the second quarter of 2020. And the impact that we have seen so far, this will grow, unfortunately, is $3.5 trillion. Next, please. The effect of COVID in MSMEs is especially severe, particularly because of higher levels of vulnerability and lower resilience related to their size. We have learned, thanks to our colleagues at UNCTAD and Ms. Krylova and her team, how precarious is the access to cash, for instance. Just to give you one indicator, there are many for micro, small, and medium enterprises. They don't have the capabilities of bigger corporations, and for them, this is a matter of a few months, if not a few weeks, to really get into a drastic situation. Let's go to the next one, please. Unemployment grows rapidly in micro, small, and medium enterprises, and these two graphs from the Brookings Institution, I'm not going to read them, but just so you have an idea. We basically see the estimated time of business closures if the pandemic persists. So how long it will take for a small or medium enterprise, depending on the sector, agriculture, manufacturing, services, and also for micro enterprises, how long it will take for them to collapse. And it's a pity, because if you see the sectors, there is no exception. All of them are vulnerable. Next, please. Before I conclude, allow me to say that you have three United Nations entities represented here. The most important, of course, being the Commission, Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, that will have the floor in a few minutes. But all of us will join in saying that indeed we need to think of the resurgence post-COVID. We need to focus on micro, small, and medium enterprises, and we have to build back better. To give us a view from the highest possible level, let me now introduce Dr. Rola Dashti, Undersecretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary, Head of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. Rola, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Tatiana. Hello, everyone. I would like to start by thanking UNCTAD and UNITAR for inviting me to be part of this webinar. As I was just talking to Tatiana, the topic of small, medium enterprises is very close to my heart. Following Alex's numbers and presentation, let me share with you some additional key figures regarding SMEs and COVID-19 impact. SMEs, including informal businesses, contribute more than half of emerging economies' GDP and employment. In the Arab world, micro, small, and medium enterprises account for more than 80% of the number of businesses in the region. Globally and regionally, most of the SMEs businesses are concentrated, as Alex said, in the trade and service sector, which was impacted the most by COVID-19 pandemic. SMEs account for a sizable share of formal employment in several economies globally. In our region, over 50% of private sector employment is in SMEs. In terms of job creation, 7 out of 10 jobs are created in SMEs. Globally, 1 out of 3 SMEs businesses are owned by women. And in the Arab world, 1 out of 7 SMEs businesses are owned by women. COVID-19 has impacted SMEs businesses dramatically, as you are all well aware, resulting in government intervention to support their survival, as they are key drivers to social stability and economic growth. Globally, around $2 trillion were provided to support SMEs, and regionally, only less than $1 billion went for their support, leaving Arab regional SMEs threatened for their survival and vulnerable employed groups at risk of sustaining their livelihood. The current COVID-19 crisis is a dire reminder that firms' level of digitization is key to their resilience in the face of such unexpected disaster events. Hence, as we build forward better, SMEs need to prepare and be ready to the magnitude of change brought about by the 4th Industrial Revolution, which has been accelerated by COVID-19. And they need to think ahead about the adoption of technology and digitization in their business operations to drive value, growth, and sustainability. Unfortunately, SMEs across the globe face very similar issues when it comes to digitization. They fall behind in digitization and technological advances compared to large firms, as most of them lack information and awareness of new digital possibilities. They lack financial resources and solutions to effectively implement change. They also lack technical capabilities, talent, and skills needed to identify the right technology options for their business. Guided by Agenda 2030 and SDGs, to ensure that small and medium-sized enterprises in the Arab region are not left behind in the digital transformation era, we have established in partnership with ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, the ICC Escort Center of Entrepreneurship. The center will support and contribute to digitization and promotion of innovative solutions for entrepreneurship and medium and micro and small medium enterprise resurgence. It will build the capacity of micro and small medium enterprises leaders in the Arab countries to digitize their business by providing tools and training programs that will ultimately help them access new customers and ensure accelerated access to finance. Further, the center will help SMEs in scaling up, improve their productivity, and reduce operational cost to become part of the global supply chain. In a nutshell, we are planning to develop a virtual SME space with digital enabling platform for the Arab region. It's called SME DBAR, and aim at supporting 5 million SMEs in the region to digitize their businesses. To end, COVID-19 had revealed our vulnerabilities and fragilities, and it taught us that digitization and innovation are key drivers and accelerators to achieving Agenda 2030 with no SME left behind to recover forward better. Thank you very much. And allow me, Mr. Karim will be also joining us, who is coordinator of the center, to address any issues you have regarding the center. Thank you very much. Over.
Thanks to you, Excellency. It's always a pleasure to hear your thoughts, and especially this very specific view that you have given us. That is excellent foundation, the same as Tatiana did, for the very interesting conversation that we will have moving on. It will be my great pleasure to be the moderator, so let me briefly mention that we have 5 speakers from 5 countries: Georgia, Nigeria, Brazil, Malaysia, and India. As you can see on the screen, we have quite an interesting dialogue, because we also can offer you 2 different points of view, but with some common factors in between. One from government, or perhaps more than one, and then the actual voice, the actual impression, and the actual reaction and analysis of entrepreneurs on the front lines. To do that, and to begin this very interesting dialogue, I will introduce the first speaker just with a short reminder, because time is short and we have a lot to cover, that there are 7 minutes for each speaker presentation. When minute 6 it's ending, our colleague Julia will do something that is very difficult to do, because she will be the time police. She has a little bell. She is going to remind you that you have only 1 more minute. But Julia is very good at it. She's Swiss, so she works like a clock. And I thank you, Julia, for that in advance. So without further ado, and to make good use of his own 7 minutes, allow me to introduce now Mr. Samson Uridia, the Head of International Relations of the Revenue Service of the Government of Georgia. Mr. Uridia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear moderator. It's my pleasure and honor to be here and to have this unique opportunity to address such a, I think that one of the most important representatives of the business sector, because as it was rightly pointed out, that the majority, and this is true also in Georgia, in reality, we have from micro, small, and medium-sized business. So they are the very important part of our society. So it is my really honor to address you today. And of course, we should say that yes, we are really we are living in this pandemic period, but we should continue to deliver the services, to supply the goods. So please, we should take into consideration the following: that it was rightly pointed out by our previous speakers, that digitalization has quite an important role for continuation. So, and let me bring very briefly the practice of Georgia. Next slide, please. First of all, when talked about the Georgian Revenue Service, please take into consideration that this is like a joint or merged governmental agency, where we have the customs, tax, sanitary border control, and even just imagine partially we are in charge of passport control. So it, as a matter of fact, it gave us the possibility to just integrate all business processes under the one, we may say, umbrella. We try to also to establish this kind of very robust e-platform for, of course, doing all the business processes based on the electronic procedure. So that's why we may say that our SMEs and of course micro business, they can communicate only with one agency. We just merge the tax and customs liability account into the one account. They can only pay to only one treasury code, which is very important and I think very simple for the micro and other types of businesses. Next slide, please. When we talk about also the policy perspectives, then again, we just decreased drastically the rates of taxes. So it means that we focus on just to extend the taxable base, but decrease the rates of taxes. And then you can see there that we have only 6 types of taxes in Georgia, and also please pay due attention that we have the double tax avoidance treaties to the more than 50 countries. Yes, we are from the 2000 years a member of the World Trade Organization. We have the right to use the 16 different rates for import duties, but we are only using 3, 0, 5, and 12. Again, to simplify the life for our business. Next slide, please. And here we have not only the like this general tax rate, but also the special tax regime. So for micro business, for small business, we have introduced a fixed taxpayer status. So it means that if a taxpayer would like to just calculate the taxes used, they can use all these different regimes. Also, we introduce high maintenance special regime, which is of course the so-called we are trying to encourage the business activity in the remote mountainous area. It's very normal, and essentially it was also initiative of the Georgian government also to introduce the, we may say, decreased rates of taxes for international maritime organization and IT companies. Next slide, please. And when we talk about how government can encourage the business, first we introduced from the 2017 so-called distributed corporate income tax. What do I mean? The government shares the responsibility with the business society. They just told them, dear business representatives, if you will invest more in your companies, we'll just exempt this taxes once and for all. So thus we invested 5 million into the Georgian business. And next, we have here VAT refund. Sorry, the previous slide. We have the this VAT refund reform. Previous slide. If you now may, I just kindly ask you to show us previous slide. So my point here is the value-added tax. This is also quite an important source of our real estate revenues, and you can see there that we also accelerated the so-called VAT refund. We refunded more within this pandemic period, within the 7 months, than we refunded during the previous year. So it was again, we may say, shared responsibility. We just tried to help our business society. Next slide, please. Also, when we talk about customs as such, we have here again the so-called one-stop principle at the border. We are all the inbound or outbound cargo should go the business processes, which will be, we may say, conducted or controlled by the revenue service. And again, we have also especially we may say equipped inlet customs services. We call them as a customs clearance zone. We are based again one-stop principle. You can clear the goods, so you should not go from one player to another and another. You can just go to one place, and of course this is also true. You can use all the digital services. And please, next slide, please. You know that it was very important during the pandemic to just scale up the existing, we may say, so-called supportive measures. And here you can see what kind of measures our government has applied. We just exempted the whole sector. We exempting the we may say employees who had the below the certain threshold, the income and etc. Next slide, because I have very short time, I would like to give you as much information as I can. We again tried to invest in our communication channel, so it means that we enhance our distance services. We just hired more workforce for our call centers. We even opened new call centers during this pandemic. Just imagine. We also introduced online platform for tax dispute settlement. And of course, we invested in employment safety, and we tried to conduct other facilitative measures. Next slide, please. And here you may say that you may see that almost all the business processes you can do with revenue service digitally. You don't need to come to us physically and to submit the documents. You can use all these, we may say, different services, whether it will be from the customs or from tax, to just request the document to conduct your preferred customs operation, and etc. Next slide, please. Next slide. And then when we talk about digitalization, it's very important that we also applied the same approach to the tax world. I mean that we have, of course, the e-way bills or electronic bills, electronic tax invoices. All our cash registers, they used to send to us electronically information. Next slide, please. And finally, just recently, I think yesterday, a new website has been launched. You can just visit this website where we again try to simplify this information which should be available for business sector, because you may understand that we are the owners of the oceans of data from customs, from tax, from we may say SPS, from passport control, and we should do our best to make this data available to whom? To business sector, to know that how they can just behave in line with law, how they can just be voluntary in compliance with law. Next slide, please. And then this is, you can verify all this information which I just said. Here we have the two excellent UNEC surveys. One is from 2018, and second is this is the COVID-19 impact assessment. It was just published, so you can visit this links and obtain all the information, because based on this service, what I'm saying now, it is true from the perspective of business sector, because in the first stage, in the first survey, 65 enterprises had been interviewed, and in the next, the second survey, 330 MSMEs had been interviewed. So it means that what I'm saying now, it is verified by all these two surveys. I thank you so much. Because we have a short time, I try to just give you very briefly information, and I would like to underline that this is doable. You can also do it, and I think that it's very important to cooperate with the government and then with the business sector. And of course, I wish you very good health and very good spirit. Thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uribe. Indeed, a very good job in telling us what your government is doing, but especially on what could be necessary to understand from the perspective of a government to make the sector perhaps more efficient and better supported. Now, in continuing with the list of speakers that we have, it is my honor to offer the floor now to Ms. Msme, the founder and CEO of Mobi Health International out of Nigeria. Ms. Adewara, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for the privilege. It was just about this time last year when I came to the United Nations in Geneva to present Mobi Health International. So I'm very delighted that there's been another opportunity for me to present what we had been doing. Next slide, please. As an introduction, we are a fully integrated telehealth provider. I started Mobi Health out of my personal experience, having trained in Nigeria as a doctor and then moved over to the UK to further my career. I had an experience, I had the opportunity to experience both sides of the world, knowing that the deficit in the healthcare system in Africa and being able to then see how things work in the Western world. So I decided to build this platform that will help to bridge that gap and address multiple pain points in the healthcare sector. As you know, Africa is one of the, Africa bears 25% of the global disease burden, but has only about 2% of world doctors. And there's massive brain drain from Africa to the Western world, further compounding the problems. Then you have difficulties that people experience in accessing basic healthcare, long distance travel, exposure to counterfeit medicines, and unqualified personnel. And then all this in a continent where more than 95% of people have no access to health insurance or healthcare. So yet it's a continent that is growing very fast. We are one of the fastest growing market in mobile technology adoption, with nearly about 500 million mobile subscribers, 30% smartphone penetration. Nigerians, for instance, they spend $8.8 billion annually on airtime and data, $1.3 billion every year on medical tourism. And yet more than 95% of people have no health insurance. So I created this platform as an integrated platform that will give anybody anywhere in Africa or anywhere in the world access to a doctor, using technology to harness the diaspora medical community as well as the local medical community to bring healthcare close to people. So we provide access to a database.
It seems that we are having connection problems. For me, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Julia. Yes, I think oh, here we have you again. Can you hear us? Ms. Adewara, can you hear us? I think we are having connection problems. Julia, to give her some extra time so she can come back, if I may, let me perhaps invite our next speaker from Brazil, Ms. Taina Reis. If you can put her on the screen, thank you very much, her presentation, and then we will go back to Dr. Adewara.
Can you hear me
now? Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Can I carry on or shall I wait?
Let me properly invite you. Ms. Tania Reis is the founder of Moeda out of Brazil. I congratulate you for your t-shirt and for the background that you have. Quite unique. It sends a strong message and we couldn't agree more. So without further ado, Ms. Reis, representing Moeda, has the floor. Welcome.
So thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here and to address such an important challenge that we live right now, like in Brazil. We are not still living the post-pandemic. We are still have very alarming numbers, more than 5 million cases. Like everybody know how that affected the small size businesses here. Like the formal numbers that we have from like businesses that went that had to close in Brazil was like 1.3 million businesses. And from that number, 700,000 businesses, they went bankrupt. So that is quite shocking. And this is like for the formal companies. Most of Brazil, they run into informal businesses, like people that very expensive to create a company, to have an accountant, and to have like a lawyer. So people are not even registered. They are not even like included into the economy. So we lack like good access to capital, microcredit. So that was like the meaning of like building Moeda. I have a lot of like story to my family. My father is my inspiration. He built a lot of programs inside of the government of Brazil with the support of the United Nations, the UNDP sector, to really support the small size businesses in the, especially in the rural areas of Brazil. So he built a program called Pronafi, which is one of the largest credit providers from Brazil. But still, from the government side, there is like a lot of bureaucracy to access capital. And in the pandemics was like even worse to access quickly that capital. Big companies, they could access very fast. Small companies was like super difficult to have cash, and their runaway was crazy. Like in 2 months, 3 months, they couldn't pay the employees. So that's why the number is so shocking for the companies that went bankrupt here. And especially because we have like a background where the financial education is not clearly on the agenda, even for the small children. Like in the education, like people don't know how to do properly taxes, how to do savings, and it's hard. Like most of the companies didn't have a plan, and no one would expect something like this event to happen. But even for the normal life, like people, most of the people here in Brazil still live month by month, like very short, like they spend the salary even like before the month ends. So is alarming, like both on the educational side, and we do need like more partnerships and more involvement and integration on actions with the public, private, and sector. They need to engage together with the people. So we always say is like the four P in the inclusion, the equation. We need to put public, private sector, and with the people. Like we do need to engage the community, and especially that community that is vulnerable. They are the informal businesses that are not even on the statistics. So we created Moeda, like that is our mission on humanizing finances and distributing impact. We're like the first fintech here in Brazil that is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals from the beginning. So that in my T-shirt, like the purpose is the new power. Like that is in our heart, like to really do the change. So we make like banking and payment services fast, because I saw this like on growing up on my dad helping the cooperatives, how hard it was for especially for women entrepreneurs, the gender question too, to access the capital. Because here in Brazil, you need like a bank guarantee, and most of it's still like a machist like country. Some so I can say that because like people leave that, and sometimes the car is in the name of the husband, the wallet is in the name is with the husband, and so the women entrepreneurs, they don't have a guarantee to provide to the bank, so they suffer even more than the men here. So we do give preference to women when we invest. We don't exclude men, of course, but still, like we see that needs balance, and that's where we are more like inclusive. And even like with the programs that we run here, we make like everything easily and seamless as possible, and with the transparency provided by the blockchain. That technology that we put was crucial, and the transparency gives us as well that confidence and the trust that people need to be doing an investment on an environment that is very unstable right now, with the pandemic, politics, and everything that is included on these environmental situations that we have right now, also in Amazon. That is crucial to have trust into information that you can give investments to the people and to flow capital to that area. We have a lot of capital flowing to philanthropy and a lot of capital flowing to big companies in this time, but was a lack of capital and really coordinated actions to put for the small size businesses, both from the government and private sector. So we do support women-owned businesses. That is the case of Dona Divina. That was a successful case. She's a president of a cooperative here in Brazil. We did Baru beer, so it was an investment on a castanha, a nut, of beer. So we always like put the value in a product, and we help them to do a business plan as well, because just providing the capital, we saw that was just a piece of the puzzle. We do need to provide the education and the means and the tools and opportunities for people to build up their businesses, not just to start, like having those coordinated actions to really facilitate opening a company, getting an accountant, getting a lawyer, like those simple things that people need access to, and the skills and abilities to run a business and to grow from the informal to the formal, and really being profitable and adding value to the product. So every investment that we make, that is where the humanizing finances go into place, because we put our hearts, like our team, like work together, and even the details on design. Sometimes it's a good presentation and putting the product on the right market. Sometimes it's going to a niche market instead of going to compete with the big companies. So we make everything transparency, with the transparency provided from the blockchain. And we were the first to give birth to a cryptocurrency that allows people from everywhere in the world to invest right away into those businesses. And they can make a small profit, so they can do good and do well at the same time. So that is an example of a project on our website from Sustainable Coffee. So that coffee, you can just go and see, and how many jobs they are making, the impact and the ESG metrics around those projects. And after you do the investments, you can follow up and to see how the project is going. And after most of our projects, they have a product in the end. So then you can purchase the coffee and purchase the beer and purchase any of the products that we make, the acai and beautiful things. So in the next slide, please, is an example of like a transaction being made. The cryptocurrency facilitates the process of like wire transferring, so it's very quick and safe ways to do it. So you can choose to invest in a project by the SDGs too. Oh, I like more education. I like more projects related to environment, so that can be more close to your heart and your purpose. And please to the next slide. You can see on the blockchain the technology that we developed in partnership with IBM, using the IBM Hyperledger Fabric is one of the protocols of blockchain. You can track like each step of the process, and that builds the trust and that human connection with the project too, because then you can see and build that database that is so much needed too. Products that fail, they provided a good lesson too, to, oh, I want to see what went good and what didn't went good to the people, so I can build this like larger Wikipedia of successful cases and projects that people can relate to and replicate into other cities. Like here right now, I'm in the northeast region of Brazil. That is a result of a public-private partnership with the government. That is a co-working space that we built up from an event called Wins for Future. And that has been very successful. Now we are reopening for the public, and we are helping like to have the community to participate even right now to see the experiences of the other countries. This is so important and so needed right now for the community here, like to listen that in other countries they are struggling as well, and that is things that we can share with India, with Africa, and things that went good here, and the things that went bad too, that we can cross and share the experiences and lessons that we learned. Here we help the artisans in Brazil, like providing the capital. That was like a lot of microcredit for popular construction. That was so needed into this time. Like imagine like working from home in a small space, and that space being like with just a quick painting, how that can change the look and feel of like home working for a person that works into the slum or like a rural area. So this is where I am right now. Like we collected 10 tonnages of recyclable waste. So that is a program also with the community here that can go and exchange the plastic and everything that is recyclable for money. So in the end of the day, they can use that money here into the community, and as a way to really share the impact of each one of the businesses that they want to be sustainable and they want to recyclable, for instance, like their waste, but they don't know how. So that's also a partnership that we're very proud here. So please to the next slide. Yeah. So in the pandemic, we also saw like everything going digitally so fast. We helped a lot of farmers to sell their organic farming online. So that was like a change on mindset. So from just selling on the street, like into those more like trading fairs, to go full on the digital market for them was very, very keen for them to survive, and they thrive into this, even into the pandemic. Now they are super happy that they can sell to even more people, and the people are supporting the local farmers. So if you provide the option for a person to at the convenience of a mobile app to buy from local instead of a big supermarket that will survive into this crisis, that is also needed. So when people have the technology and have the access to just sell online, this is crucial for the survival of their businesses too. And we saw that with the marketplace. So this, we put together our technology so people can see when they buy a carrot, when they buy tomatoes, how many jobs they are helping to sustain into this crisis too, and what's the impact of the money that they are buying for themselves. So that is our store, the marketplace store today. So when the people buy there, they also can see the stories of the farmers and the women farmers. That is, like, we're happy and like proud of them that we could support into this time. So this is an example of the blockchain. So when you purchase the avocado in Brazil, you can see how much went to the cooperative, how much went to the special projects that they support here, how much went to each of the farmers, just from one product, one avocado. So here we did a partnership with Impacto. That is where this like T-shirt come from. That was the first like emergency action that we put the blockchain to track the donations that here we help in Brazil. We help 8 NGOs in Rio de Janeiro, 2 in Brasilia, and a lot of couple NGOs. And that was the first like emergency. Oh, they need food, because that was like especially on the slums and periferia in Brazil. And that was the first one. But now we are helping to transition from that emergency money to the skills and abilities to re-enter the working space. So if you just go back, maybe I'm running out of time. No, before the slides. Thank you. Before. Yes, so that is a beautiful partnership into the Amazonian region with the people that sell the fish with Hari. That is an international organization. We put together the digital identity for the people that do the fishing. Here in Brazil, they were also affected by the market, because fish, you need to get fresh into the other areas, and to do the logistics of collecting the fish and selling to the big cities into Brazil was very, they were super affected, and especially with the crazy environmental politics and all the craziness that we many people know by the news here that happened with the coast of Brazil. They also need like a lot of support, and also for them, the small size businesses that deal with seafood, for them like to get recognition from an identity, and then that you know that when you buy from them, you are like helping many families that survive from the businesses. So we are very proud of the partnership with Hari to just launching, and we also launched a savings program. So for them to build their savings, get like 5 women, and let's build like a little bit cash so we have like a runaway if something happens. And this is with Bruno Cato, the first acai that we are tokenizing for acai rainforest also in the region of Amazonia. And this will also put hardware so the investors can see temperature like in every single aspect of the environmental, how we are saving water into the crop. And after investing, they can also do prove the acai. So the acai was the first product that we trade and we sold to Thailand. So it was the first international product that we exported even into this pandemic time. And the farmer, the receivables of anticipation, that was also key here in Brazil, because many contracts with big supermarkets, they pay just after 60 days or 90 days. And that was a stable time that people need the money right away. So we do that receivables anticipation of 1 day. And here we have a lot of farmers, even in this northeast region area of Brazil. And we were able to support a lot of beautiful farmers that you can see in the picture now with Muda Meu Mundo and Priscila, and also all the partnership with Somos Tiziana, Rolim, the project that you saw with the construction, the money for the construction, and a lot of other beautiful things that we have built together here in the state of Ceará with the artisans, and also in the communities that really need assistance, the immediate assistance, and now mid-term and long-term assistance for them to survive. So I thank you all the partners here. I couldn't have built this alone. We have a big team in Moeda, and we are growing very fast, and I'm very happy to share and build the seeds for a lot of people and see a lot of smiles even into this crazy time. Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to share the work that we have been done here. And if you are interested and get to know about our technology, how we can replicate some of those things into other countries, I'm very open to new partnerships, and we want to see we can do partnerships internationally too. And that's what we want to do. We want to share our successful experiences and help other people into the world too. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Ms. Reyes. Really an impressive presentation on the use of technology to support sustainable development. It's quite unique. The case of Brazil, I thank you again. I see that Dr. Adeguara is back with us. We were very sad to see you disconnecting. We have a few minutes with you, but it will have to be very short. Is it okay for you to give us a summary of your message?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I tried to connect back through my phone, so I think it will be pretty okay now. So I was just saying that before COVID, we created this platform to support this SDG 3 of the United Nations, health and well-being. It's a platform that speaks to the deficit in the healthcare sector, particularly for developing countries. So we are using technology, blockchain, AI, to try and mitigate the impact of shortage of doctors across the continent. So we're building a database of 100,000 doctors globally across various specialties who speak different languages, and also that this patient can access this platform, next slide please, through any of our 3 delivery channels. So we have smartphone, and then we have the solar powered and SATCOM equipped telehealth clinics. And then we have the toll-free lines for those who don't have smartphones. They can easily call in and connect with the doctor. So it is 0 rated, so patients do not need to bear the cost of data, because as you know, Africans and people in developing countries particularly pay a high cost for data. And the last thing you want during consultation is that patient runs out of data and then gets disconnected. So our platform speaks to the whole spectrum of the patient's population. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. When COVID came, we had just launched commercially in Nigeria. I mean, we have been doing these pro bono services, providing healthcare support to communities, reaching over 100,000 lives. Then we launched commercially in January, and then shortly afterwards, COVID started. And it had a great impact on both personal life for me as an entrepreneur, as well as for the business. We all knew about all the information overload, the panics, and the rest of them. This had impact on general and mental health, lack of sleep, looking after 2 kids, and then there's homeschooling on top of that. So it had a lot of impact on us, both because we are a small team, and also because obviously we had at the time going through fundraising. So for us as a business, we were still pretty much pre-revenue, and it had impact on cash flow. It had impact on us being able to close our funding rounds, which had to be delayed due to the COVID circumstance, because most of the financial closures do not happen behind the screen. You had to have a face-to-face encounter. So that impacted on access to funding, and the banks were not really inclined to fund because the criteria, most of them, cannot be met, especially for female entrepreneurs. The barriers to access to funding is very high, and most of the time, women entrepreneurs just do not approach the bank because they already feel that they are going to be rejected. And then you have the pressure of having to keep your employees who are highly skilled and who you have to probably pay quite a lot to keep. So it was a bit of too much actually to handle at some point, but we managed to get past that. Next slide, please. So what we had to do was immediately to adapt our business model to the COVID reality. We found out that quite a number of people were panicking. People were worried about their symptoms. They didn't want to go to the test centers. So we launched the first tele-guided COVID-19 self-swab test. Using our platform, people can then have a consultation with a doctor. Then we send the test kit to them through our trained courier, contactless, and then they connect with us on the video to validate that they are doing this sample collection on themselves. And also we created a video guidance for it. And then this then gets taken to the lab. We partnered with NIMR, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, so that this improved the turnaround time for result. It also reduced the stigmatization that is associated with COVID-19. It reduced the consumption of PPEs and actually just reduced the spread of the infection. So it was the first one on the continent, and we're very excited to be able to use our platform to demonstrate the fact that you can act the importance of telemedicine in social distancing in COVID-19, because before then, telemedicine had been on a very slow pace of adoption, not just in Africa, but globally. And then when COVID came, people were now, oh, this is what you've been talking about, you know, and people were now more inclined to adopt telemedicine. So we've seen a very big jump in the numbers of adoption across the continent. However, because of the lack of access to funding, it was a bit difficult to scale up the solution. Next slide, please. So I would like to just divide some of the barriers that we encountered, which is very common to many medium to small to medium enterprises across Africa particularly. We have the external barriers. I mean, there have been quite a number of studies looking into barriers to access of technological information and innovation for entrepreneurs. External barriers like lack of access to technological information, raw materials, and finance. During the COVID crisis, it was difficult for people, of course, to get access to raw materials. The lack of funding also presented a huge barrier, like I mentioned before. The lack of cohesive technological and R&D policies by the government was a great barrier as well. Lack of IP protection. How are you sure that your invention is not going to be copied when you go to make presentations and the rest of them? Then you have the consumer behavior. We're talking about digital divide, that technology has the potential of bridging digital divide, but it can also widen the, as we can see, and we're going to be talking about subsequently, because new technological innovations like for the fourth industrial revolution, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, we're talking about virtual reality, all this require a different set of skill, and it is often more adopted by younger people who have the financial wherewithal. So there's still going to be, apart from the physical access, the skill and use access barriers that we're going to be encountering in this fourth industrial revolution. And then you have the internal barriers, like the skill barriers of the entrepreneurs themselves, the lack of technical expertise. Many of them were all working, most of their systems were not digitalized. So when COVID came, it was a bit difficult to sustain themselves. And then you have the attitude of employees, attitude of the management team to change and innovation, and just generally the lack of funding. So all this presented a bit of barriers during the COVID-19 crisis. Next slide, please. So the fundamentals for survival for any business, of course, is your access to capital, your technological know-how, and your team. How you're able to harness all this together. And what we had to do as a business was immediately, like I said, adjust our business model to the COVID reality by creating new solutions and targeting new customer base, as well as just trimming down your cost to focus on, to reduce the fixed cost and just focusing more on the essentials and looking at more variable costs to try and reduce your burn rate. We also had to look for alternative source of revenue streams, looking at different new solutions that can bring in revenue. Had to adjust our business model in a way, because we found out that most people preferred pay-as-you-go rather than subscription. And rather than just being rigid on the subscription basis, we were very flexible to adopt also the pay-as-you-go services. We continue to evaluate our product and services to make sure that it meets the consumer's demand and the need of the market. For the team, it was, at the time, people were trimming down the teams. For us, we had a small team anyway, so we ensured that we had a good communication in order not to dampen the employees' morale. We were very transparent when it came to the kind of funding that we had, and empathy was both ways, from employer to employee and the other way around. We were less worried about control because we were working virtually anyway before the COVID-19 crisis. So we had a team that were responsible and were able to deliver to task. So our strategy was to keep playing to win and not just to survive, in a way that even we will survive, and then also post-COVID we'll continue to survive. So our strategy was to continue to play to win rather than just to survive, and it did work for us. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the reason why it's very important for us, as mentioned by previous speakers, to support the MSME, the small medium enterprises, of course, is because of the sheer number of the workforce that are involved. 84% of the informal sector in Nigeria accounted for by SMEs, and they contribute 45% of the GDP. They are the cornerstone of families and the economy, and they cannot be ignored. They will continue to play a very critical role post-COVID recovery. The government needs to create an enabling environment for startup-friendly enabling environment, coherent strategy, greater support for early-stage pre-revenue startups will be very critical for this. In terms of funding, we will be looking at opportunities that brings bridge financing for startups, especially for female startups who are 6 times less likely to be able to raise funding compared to their male counterpart, even though research has shown that they deliver more value than their male counterpart. Tax incentives and business support for them will also be very great. Mentorship, I like the fact that the previous speaker spoke about the entrepreneurship hub that is being created to support them. This is very critical, and I think should be adopted across various regions. Importantly, also to pay attention to supporting the mental health and emotional status of entrepreneurs, because this is very critical and is often neglected. Most entrepreneurs have sleepless nights, they are burnt out, and sometimes often it can be a very lonely road. So having this kind of support will be critical. Next slide, please. So eventually, we were very excited to have won several awards and collaborations across the globe. We won the Sanofi Africa Tech Award. We were able to get the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant to pilot our telehealth clinics across different states in Nigeria. We also won the World Bank Award, SDG and HER Award, as one of the 7 winners globally. We were top 100 solutions for the Africa versus Virus Challenge that was organized by the Africa Development Bank and the EU Commission. I'd just like to point out here that we know that there are access to grants. When it comes to funding, funding is the greatest barrier to access to technological information for entrepreneurs. It can make the difference between failure and success. We know there are grants, but oftentimes what we found were that the grants were were often too laborious. You know, you needed a different skill set to be able to apply for the grants, which most of the entrepreneurs did not have in-house. So they have to outsource that, and then it costs money, it costs time, it's a distraction from the work that you have to do. And oftentimes they don't get the funding that they needed from that. So if there's a way to streamline the grant application process and simplify it for entrepreneurs, then I think that would be really, really helpful. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much to you. It was quite unique to see that, and congratulations on your award. Indeed, very, very much deserved, including His Excellency the President of Nigeria. I saw that before. Very good. We will continue now with the deliberations, and it is my great pleasure to invite Mr. Moth Atasha, the founder of Foxy Mojo Digital Management out of Malaysia. Mr. Atasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex, for the introduction. Thank you for having me. To many people, myself included, speaking at the United Nations platform considered as a high point in someone's career. So it has been a real pleasure for me. Next slide, please. Next slide. I come from a country called Malaysia. We are about 33 million people, well known as a truly Asian country, multicultural with multilingual capabilities. We do have quite a number of beautiful places to visit. 90% of Malaysians have access to the internet. So we love the internet so much. On average, we actually spend about 8 hours online. As you know, the internet has enabled the business to operate from multi-locations. For example, you can have a front office in Switzerland while having a back office in Malaysia. So since 2004, Malaysia has been the top 3 favorite offshore business location in the world. So however, we realized that there's a bit of work that we need to do in digital terms. In terms of digital competitiveness, we rank at number 26 globally, which we would want to improve the ranking in the next couple of years. So I hope that would give you some context from where I'm coming from. Next slide, please. COVID-19 has certainly impacted the way consumers behave. Consumers would continue to shop online. They are looking for retailers that demonstrate visible safety measures. Another point which I feel very important is to focus on 78% of consumers believe that companies have a larger role to play in the society. Next slide, please. Let's talk about frugal innovation. So the concept has been going on for ages, but during COVID-19, it has accelerated the importance of frugal innovation to help people to do more with less. So in this quick example, on the left, traditionally retailers would need upfront investment for a POS device and expected to pay a certain fee and maintenance costs. On the right side is an example of frugal innovation, leveraging on existing technologies such as QR code, enable retailers to do business faster, better, and cheaper. Next slide, please. In this example of frugal innovation, leveraging on QR code during the recovery period, we can use QR code for contact tracing, contactless order and payment. When our communities are connected, we can reduce overlapping of efforts between government agencies and other organizations. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Today, I would focus more on upskilling as a key initiative to bridge digital divide. So I would like to introduce you to Nur Ashikin Halil. She quit her job as the secretary. She had no income right after. By chance, she participated in an upskilling program. She learned how to offer her services online. Today, her clients include NASDAQ top 10 company and also South Korea leading TV station. So last year, she made approximately $340,000. And I was informed this year, she has surpassed $1 million in this year, accelerated during COVID-19. So Nur Ashikin is also an interesting profile to demonstrate as a woman, she got this. So we are on a mission to produce more talents like Nur Ashikin. Next slide, please. My recommendation is to introduce Digital Transformation CSR. So before we go further, I would like to urge all of you to rethink about CSR. CSR is not about handing over a big check, take a photo, and then post it on media. So integrity is the heart of CSR activities. It is not about fame. It's about us as a company to do the right thing and make the world a better place for our stakeholders. During pandemic, Amazon has quickly responded to help its business partners by providing a relief fund worth $25 million. This action is necessary because business partners are stakeholders. Let me give you another example. Intel is famous for its semiconductor business. Semiconductor businesses in general need to use a lot of water. Intel realized that they have been using a lot of water to produce products. So in 2017, they committed to restoring water that they have used by 2025. To me, this is not something extraordinary, but Intel should be responsible for it from day one. When we do business, we need to be responsible for all our stakeholders, not just shareholders. Next slide, please. Digital Transformation CSR, that is a movement that the government should encourage to accelerate the digital competency for your respective country. First and foremost is to set the standard and clear guidelines so people would know what is good, what is so-so, and what is bad when it comes to CSR. For example, to deploy drone for precision agriculture in a small village. The drone is usually quite expensive for farmers, but to own multiple drones, they may want to get financial assistance from the bank. If you set the standard and clear guidelines, it will be easy for the bankers to refer as part of their approval process. Now, with standard and guidelines, your respective government would also be comfortable to structure the incentive either in the form of tax or grants or maybe both. Next slide. So this is my last slide. I would like to share this quote from Peter Drucker. The greatest danger in turbulence times is not the turbulence, but it is to act with yesterday's logic. If you are interested to get in touch with me, feel free to connect on LinkedIn or email atasha@foxymojo.co. With that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks to you. All of our speakers have been very inspiring. That success story that you shared is really an eye-opener. And the use of technology that you and your predecessors in using the floor have shared are really best practices that we should explore. Thank you for that. Let me now go to our last speaker, but not least, because of that, on the contrary, we are very much looking forward and experience from India. And it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Manish Kothari, the founder of Rhino Machines. Mr. Kothari, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be. I would like to thank Tatiana and the Empretech program for allowing me to reach to this level. So if I go to the presentation talking about frugal innovation in manufacturing. So I've been listening about frugal innovations and innovations in the digital space. Let me share. So I have been into different innovations from energy efficiency to waste recycling. And for today, I have selected a topic which is very relevant, and we are talking of plastic waste as one of the biggest problems today. And what I will try to go through is what happened when COVID came to the world. So actually, I started to understand COVID in nearly end of January. And since I had already gone to the Empretech program about a year back, I started to understand that you should also plan to do things before you are forced by the events and recognize the change which happens in the world. So this was a solution of recycling, which we had been working for last 2 years. And I realized that the moment COVID enters, the world will now start looking at things a little differently. So what I did was first document the innovation, good multilingual. So I did it in a vernacular language with English subtitles, and prepared myself before scaling up. And if I go to the next slide, when COVID was declared in India in mid of March, around 15th or 16th of March, 17th of March is when I made my plan. Now, when it was imminent that the lockdown would happen. So I planned before the lockdown, put my dates, this is what I am going to do. And I had already applied for a Solar Impulse Foundation platform, which was recognizing clean, efficient solutions a year ago. And I said, this is the time which I could use to implement this, understand the business better, because till now we were all struggling to get out of the recession, which was there for a couple of years. And as the recession was ending, we got into another storm, which is called COVID today. So I registered on the Impulse Foundation, planned, documented. And when I started documenting, if you can go to the next slide, I can share how to grow this business. Now, this documentation gives me a lot of information about the possibility to recycle waste and convert into wealth. During this lockdown, there was no manufacturing activity taking place. But what we did was we invested our time to put all the process in place, get the, and all this journey, which you are seeing stamps and everything. This is a personal entrepreneurial competencies, which I have a habit of writing every day. What I do, it's a logbook on a Facebook gym. And the entire story, right from the day it started in January or February or even a year ago, how I have gone through the process. I'm only showing a few bits of it because of the time which we have, and going into networking and reaching this presentation. In June, what I did was put this entire presentation into the international media. And from the international media came to the national media, from national media came to the local media, and created awareness about a solution which was not recycling only plastic. Plastic was 20%, but 80% was the industry where this waste was generated. And I was aware of this problem for last 4 to 5 years. I took this opportunity to understand this. And behind all of this, there are 3 pillars which I have used, which is, and the most important is the culture of building a business. And what I've tried to document is how did I go about building this venture, having a very clear understanding of where I want to go. Whatever I did was connected to the mission statement of my organization, which I inherited from my father as a second generation entrepreneur, and how to carry that forward as a succession plan. I was part of a UNITAR innovation program, and through the accelerator, I learned how to build a business model canvas, which customer segment, what was the value proposition, putting it all together. And from UNITAR, I landed into UNCTAD's Emprotech program in 2018, which allowed me to, from one UN program to another UN, and today I'm in the 3rd one. So I don't know, every UN program gives me a new orbit to go. And Emprotech actually put all the thoughts into a system, into a proper structure, allowing me to understand how a business should work, where it could fail, where it could succeed. And from this, if we go into the next slide, we'll see the quantum of the business. So starting from a very small 100 kg per hour innovation, which started in our factory, all made out of scrap available in our factory. We did not invest in any plant and machinery, but used our internal resources and did that. And on 31st of March, I was able to identify the market. And if you just click, you'll see the size of the market, where for India itself, we are converting around 12 and a half, around 13 million of foundry waste with a 4 million of plastic into commodities, which could be bricks, paver blocks. And there's a picture where we are now looking at going into furniture made out of 100% of this material, because the strength of this material has been appreciated very well by architects across. We have validated the strength. It is 2.5 times of the normal brick. And the impact on employment. So if you click on the next slide, you'll see that values of the revenue, the employment generation possible with this business, and how is what allowing to 2 SDGs. SDG 8 is on employment and SDG 12 on responsible consumption. Divided this business model into 5 segments. The first segment was collecting the waste. Though waste plastic looks very easy, I now realize that waste plastic is the most difficult task to collect, because we can see it's like sitting in the center of the ocean and not having water to drink. That's the situation where I am right now. And in the last couple of months, I've started to understand this entire project needs stitching of the community together. And so I have engaged using the digital platform. We have been doing interaction. I have been interacted with Sony Corporation from Japan and Singapore, with Australia, USA, and in the national social organizations, where we are trying to create the awareness where when you are throwing the plastic, how we can create a valuable product which can come back to you. The process is established by us. The technology is made locally. It is open. There is no patent, and we are allowing the industry to take this technology across the country and build a value chain where we can build a franchisee model or an e-commerce model where the product could be made across the country in clusters, because instead of transporting the waste, we should transfer the technology to the area. And this can be done anywhere across the world. We have initiated a website. Everything which we made was simple, no big investment, everything with whatever capabilities we had. Because I come from a manufacturing background into pure capital goods manufacturing. We did not have the internet capabilities like our friend from Brazil had. Though I do understand blockchain and IoT and implement in our machines, we use the resources available during COVID. At the same time, by doing this exercise, there was one more thing which we were able to do is the mental stress during COVID was very high. There were around 150 to 200 people in our organizations. Through such manufacturing activities, we have kept them engaged, and the mental health of people, their thinking has been continuously getting built. And since we invested into our entire organization with Empretech, the building of culture, which is the foundation for any successful business, is what we have been able to do for the last 6 months from April till today. And are the people who are building these modular, frugal, innovative, and efficient solutions in our company. If you see, there's one burner which has been shown in this slide. In this same period, we have been able to associate with another institute in our country, bringing high efficient radiant heat technology. So integrating and commercializing different technologies is what has been the journey for me personally and our organization during COVID-19. And I cannot thank Empretech enough for giving us this toolbox, which you can see. It's a jigsaw puzzle. If you are able to understand it well, you are definitely be able to go to a sustainable goal. Thank you very much. And I do hope this would be helpful for all of us to come out of COVID. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Mr. Kothari. Very well structured presentation and very much deserved, in my opinion, recognition to UNCTAD, and particularly to Empretec and to you, Tatiana, and your team. Congratulations. This is a real impact that we always want to achieve at the UN. But all presentations are in reality really motivational, very well structured, and giving us a view on how the technology and digitalization can actually help micro, small, and medium enterprises in the resurgence process that hopefully we will start soon when the coronavirus pandemic decreases. Now, it's 5:28 in Geneva. We are supposed to finish at 5:30, and we will have normally only 2 minutes, but allow me to make a proposal with your permission, Tatiana, if you agree, before you give us closing remarks. We have received several questions. I am going to mention only 3 or 4 very fast, but I think it's important. One is for Mobi Health. How is teleconsultation by medical professionals regulated to minimize potential risks? Is this mainly for swab testing when it applies to coronavirus COVID testing? Or has there been an expanding agenda for a greater scope of teleconsulting across different medical areas? Can you give us, Dr. Adewara, a very short answer on how is teleconsultation regulated or not? To you.
So a very good question indeed. There's no blueprint right now for the adoption of telemedicine across Africa. And what we have done is, because we are HIPAA compliant, we are GDPR compliant, we are coming from these high standards, and what we have done is to be proactive, to engage with the different stakeholders, from the medical council to the Ministry of Health, to try and bring them to the table, to deploy, to start to talk about policies around doctors' licensing. We do a lot of thorough checks, and we check with our regulators, whether it's GMC or the equivalent in the US, Canada, and also in Africa. We ensure that our doctors are properly credentialed and checked, that there is an appraisal system in-house to continue to make sure that they are in good standing. We have policies around safe medication prescribing. We have policies around opioid prescription, which is endemic in Africa. We have policies around data security, confidentiality. We have all these policies in-house, but there's currently no regulation. And what we are doing is to try and alert the government to this, to try and bring policies, cohesive policies together that would ensure safe adoption of telemedicine across the continent. And I think that is the role that United Nations can also play, to use a platform to try and bring these stakeholders together and facilitate across the continent.
Indeed, and thank you. Second question, and the last one is more general. This one is for Foxy Mojo. Has there been any effort made in the pursuit of sustainability, environmental goods and services, or linkage to climate change as part of green recovery through digital transformation? So do you know of any efforts like that? To Foxy Mojo.
Yes. So for example, in Malaysia, we have Blockchain Energy Savings Consortium. So it's private sector led initiative working with government. So the idea is to track energy savings. So that is using blockchain technology. And at the lowest level of sustainability, we are actually helping companies. Most companies has the process to transform from on paper to digital. So that is actually the first step.
Thank you very much, and a very good size answer, very precise as well. Very good. The last is more general, and perhaps I will present it to UNCTAD, and then we will hear closing remarks. It says, this is a participant from Uganda. His name is David Katenderi. If I want to digitalize our business, who can I contact? We are going to run a TOT, and we need a session on digitalization. How can we be helped by UNCTAD? Tatiana.
Taina, for me, like moedaseeds.com, I can, our team can put all the Instagram, Facebook, and the website and everything that you need. So it's Moeda, M-O-E-D-E-A, like it's written like here. Seeds, as in like in seed and growing a seed, seeds.com, moedaseeds.com. So just reach out to us or my Instagram, like just Taina Rees. Anyway, we can help and support on the digitalization, both on the capital, access to capital. We can also replicate the fintech model into other countries. We have a partnership with MasterCard and like other international companies that can help to support other countries, and also into the marketplace that is so needed. So the marketplace is connected to the banking payments capabilities, so people can like just put a product to sell and receive the money right away with no friction into the blockchain, and then track the impact that they are making with the product. So everything that we do here, we had in mind previously to how to replicate what we are doing. So just reach out to us and we will be happy to support you.
Thank you very much. And now for closing remarks, indeed, Ms. Tatiana Krylova. Tatiana.
Thank you, Alex. But before I go to the concluding remarks, just wanted also to comment on the question. I think one of the objectives of this webinar is actually to network, to bring in these good practices, and then to learn from each other. So then, thank you very much, suggesting your help here, your assistance on providing some advice and maybe even training to your peers in the entrepreneurship area. With regard to UNCTAD, so then I think we can stay connected, and we will see what kind of training could be put. We have the division on technology that deals with technology and technology diffusion, and so there are some training tools that are available. So let us then maybe keep connected, and then we can work it out. And based on that, actually looking at how it goes, maybe we will scale it up somehow, because this is we can see how important is this area. And now I'm going to the concluding remarks as well, is that, of course, digitalization and access to technology is one of key components of enabling entrepreneurship environment. And in fact, even these webinars and of course our work at UNCTAD in the area of entrepreneurship is built around something that is called Entrepreneurship Policy Framework, that was developed by UNCTAD 2 years ago, and it really highlights the key components of enabling entrepreneurship environment, including regulations, including access to finance, training and education, and networking and awareness raising, but also the technology. Technology and innovation, of course, key. And in fact, some definitions of entrepreneurship equally to innovation. So basically, it's really very, 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 very connected to aspects. And with COVID-19, digitalization really became a cross-cutting area. So it's access to finance, access to markets, access to technology per se. All this really relates to digitalization. So definitely these discussions are extremely important. And again, would like to thank all presenters with really very, very learning and inspiring information about good practices that are already there. On the policy level, we heard a presentation from a speaker from Georgia. And so then we also had, of course, this development initiative on Center for Entrepreneurship in Escort in the region. And there are also questions about other chapters. So I think that also could be somehow further explored. And I think Karim from the center is also here. So then we can continue this dialogue and see how it could be really, these practices could be expanded also to other areas. And then, of course, entrepreneurs with your extraordinary success stories. I mean, this is really inspiring to hear that there are so many opportunities that are tapped, and also the notion that you can do that. This is all replicable. So this is really something that I think is very important for all of us to hear, and then also to bring this experience to our other constituencies. And I also want to comment and thank you, of course, Manish, for bringing Emprotech into the light of these discussions. And so just for those who don't know about the program, it's a program that's run by UN since 1989. It's based on the approach to entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship skills facilitation based on behaviors, based on competences. So it's a different area compared to hard skills and even soft skills. You know, it's really about inner self of an entrepreneur and it's his or her potential, and more important, how it could be unleashed. So actually, this is really not the words, it's a methodology that was developed by Harvard University and then took on board by UN to actually bring it as a developmental tool. So, and we have this program in maybe about 50 countries where the program has roots. In about 40 countries, there are Emprotech national centers. And actually, there is a center in Malaysia, there is a center in Nigeria, there is a big center, a very huge institutional setting in Brazil. So we're really very happy to also connect you with the centers because these are also fantastic networks with of very inspired and very motivated and very capable entrepreneurs. And so that's something that also could be explored in our further. Further going further on, taking it further. And again, thank you everybody for this I found it really, as you Alex said, eye-opening session, really very inspiring. And I also would like, of course, to thank UNITAR and personally you, Alex, for this great partnership that we have. I think we are going strength to strength, and so then it's hopefully it's also useful for participants. And of course, the team, both at UNITAR and also at UNCTAD, and Philippe is behind on our part. I think you have several team members, Alex, and so then so that's really and Selsha, of course, I think he's also on online now. So it's really great development, and we would actually, in addition to what we discussed, it would be also great to hear from you and from participants. What else can we do to be more relevant, to really, helping to look at this, to go through these difficult times. And thank you also for this excellent saying that really you need to go not to survive but to win. And that's really very entrepreneurial instructions. So then let's take it on board, and also look forward to seeing all of you on our next webinar, which will be on the 18th of November. So I close here and over to you, Alex. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And the same on behalf of UNITAR to all of you and almost 130 participants from around the world, more than 20 countries. Our sincere appreciation out of Geneva. We wish you the best. Blessings to all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.